This is Frontline on Air. Major stories on the go.
India's strategic agility will define its U.S. ties in Trump's second act. The U.S. and India must make ties irreversible, but Trump's tendency to turn on allies means New Delhi faces a tough balancing act ahead. Jayant Prasad.
Voice by Rakesh Sharma, Timber Media.
India and the US enjoyed a comfortable relationship in the first Trump presidency. The remarkable similarity in style and slogans displayed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump, especially in the way they focused on the rhetoric of making their nations great again, contributed to their solid personal relations. Trump revived the moribund Quad. The US Pacific Command was renamed the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. Trump's national security strategy stressed that the Indo-Pacific stretched from the west coast of India to the western shores of the United States. It further stated that the US welcomed India's emergence as a leading global power and stronger strategic and defense partner, and would support India's leadership role in Indian Ocean security and throughout the broader region. There's little reason to believe the situation will be different in the next 4 years. India and the US have had a complex relationship. When Prime Minister A.B. Vajpayee described the two nations as natural allies, he suggested a broad consonance of values and geopolitical interests. President Barack Obama described India-US relations as a defining partnership of the 21st century. President Joe Biden amended it with the definite article, "the." Modi said in his 2016 address to the joint session of the US Congress that the relationship has overcome the hesitations of history, suggesting the removal of reticence in forging a long-term partnership between the two countries. While they differ on several issues, the two nations' congruences far outweigh the disagreements. The US is India's largest market for merchandise and services trade. Last year, the two countries resolved their 7 pending WTO disputes. The US foreign direct investment stock in India was $51.6 billion in 2022. The two countries cooperate in all important areas of technology and innovation, including agriculture, blockchain, clean energy, cyber sciences, future generation telecommunications, health security, and space. Through its 2018 elevation to the Strategic Trade Authorization Tier 1 status, India gained license-free access to a wide range of technologies regulated by the US Departments of Commerce and State. India and the US have joined hands on the Mineral Security Partnership, the Artemis Accords, the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies, and have concluded a Memorandum of Understanding on Semiconductor Supply Chain and Innovation Partnership. Cooperation on artificial intelligence and quantum and 5G and 6G technologies is on the anvil, besides a host of scientific research projects. Defense cooperation drives India-US strategic ties. Defense cooperation is the driver of India-US strategic ties. Despite the talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India and the promotion of domestic arms manufacturing, India remains the largest global arms importer, accounting for 9.8% of the international arms trade between 2019 and 2023. Although Russia remained the dominant supplier in this period, accounting for over a third of India's arms imports, the US increased its share significantly, 13% of India's imports for 2019 to 2023, which partly includes the first Trump presidency. The India-US Defense Trade and Technology Initiative has little to demonstrate a dozen years after its launch. Hopefully, the 2023 India-US Defense Acceleration Ecosystem, INDUS-X, will act as a spur to the capacity building of Indian defense startups, increase funding opportunities for defense innovations, and strengthen defense supply chains. As a major defense partner, India is still not treated on par with US allies and NATO members, despite having signed the foundational agreements that are a prerequisite for a closer defense relationship, including the Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement, and despite the unprecedented Indian commitment to provide help for maintenance of forward-deployed US naval assets. The two countries have additionally agreed to work together for logistics, repair and maintenance infrastructure for aircraft and vessels in India. India is awaiting US administration backing and bipartisan congressional support for the enabling legislation tabled in June 2023 to accelerate the process of foreign military sales and exports under the US Arms Export Control Act. As for trade, since President-elect Trump has called India a very big abuser of tariffs, there is a looming threat of additional tariffs on Indian exports to the US. China tops the list of countries that have run up a staggering trade surplus with the US, and India is at number 11. In 2022, the US trade deficit with China was $421.85 billion. Its deficit with India was $43.66 billion, over 9.5 times less. Although several factors go in India's favor, trade negotiations with the US can be tricky. India is not at the forefront of unbalanced trade with the US. Its surplus in services trade is only $7.4 billion and steadily reducing. The 320,260 Indian students in US institutions contribute $7.7 billion annually to the US economy. Indian tourist footfalls are increasing. In 2023, the US Embassy and consulates in India issued 1.4 million visas. The growing Indian defense imports do not figure in the trade figures. Moderation of Indian tariffs, which now average around 17%, will only increase Indian competitiveness. India is readying a flexible response, including an optimal deal to facilitate mutual access for products of export interest to each other. India's role in making the US a preeminent global power is considerable. The H-1B visas given to Indian workers trained in science, technology, engineering and mathematics, STEM, are critical for US industry. In 2023, Indian professionals constituted over a fourth of the 3.5 million STEM workers in the US. The takeaways from a 2022 US government report of US multinational enterprises, USMNEs. Indians constituted 12% of their worldwide workforce of 44.3 million. India accounted for 8% of the $448.9 billion research and development expenditure of the USMNEs. And most importantly, the current dollar value added by USMNEs as a measure of their direct contribution to the US's GDP as a proportion to their investments was the highest for their investments in India. A reason why so many US firms are setting up global capability centers in India. Many of Trump's remarks are due to his predilection to shoot from the hip and make unsettling statements as a negotiating ploy. Trump is tilting at the windmills in threatening BRICS countries with 100% tariffs if they pursue creating a new currency, for a BRICS currency plan does not exist. If proposed, India is likely to prevent it. Although many bilateral trade issues are resolvable, for the term of the Trump presidency, India will have to forget about restoration of the generalized system of preferences, reduce tariffs for specified products, which was withdrawn in 2019, and a bilateral international social security agreement, also known as a totalization agreement, for the return of social security deductions made from the salaries of temporary skilled professionals from India. Quad members Australia and Japan benefit from this. Volume still modest in high technology and dual-purpose trade. In high technology and dual-purpose trade, US export controls for Indian access to high technology and dual-use goods have eased. Yet, the trade volume remains surprisingly modest, even if it is better than in the years when export permits faced a presumption of denial. Of the $47.2 billion US exports to India in 2022, exports worth $187.4 million, or 0.4%, were under license. The comparative figures for China are instructive. The total value of US exports to China is substantially higher. Exports worth $1,178.2 million, or 0.8% of the $151.1 billion US exports to China, were under licensing, and $25.3 billion were under no license required, contrasted with just $3.3 billion for India. The situation might improve with the freshly instituted India-US Strategic Trade Dialogue poised to review export control regulations and ease their implementation. The hurdles for a deeper India-US economic partnership are saboteurs in and outside Raisina Hill and the Washington, D.C. Beltway, and the inadequate absorptive capacity in India for US technology. Indian industry and the government will have to lift their game to take advantage of all available openings. Visas and the issue of illegal immigrants. Visas and illegal immigrants grabbed recent attention, with a segment of Trump's cohorts from the Make America Great Again (MAGA) family lashing out at Indian Americans. They want to curtail H-1B visas and the optional practical training for students on F-1 visas. According to a November 2023 PTI report, the US has 750,000 illegal immigrants from India, the third largest such group after illegal immigrants from Mexico and El Salvador. A Times of India report in December 2024 indicated that 50% of the 90,000 Indians arrested by US immigration in the last two fiscals might be Gujaratis. Although Trump has been supportive of H-1B visas, he is committed to a crackdown on illegal immigration, which might cast a shadow on India-US ties should Trump succeed in expelling undocumented immigrants. Conflicts in Europe and Asia. International system under strain. The international system is under unprecedented strain because of the ongoing conflicts in Europe and West Asia. Any attenuation of this will benefit India. A thaw between the US and Russia will reduce Russian dependence on China. Calming the conflicts is not easy. Russia is ready to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine, but wants the US to take the first step. Israel would have to be on board for peace in the Arabian Peninsula. Despite the many China hawks in his foreign and security policy team, Trump threw an olive branch to President Xi Jinping by inviting him to his January 20th inaugural. He also reportedly said, "China and the United States can together solve all the problems in the world," and then quipped, "Think of that." China's measured message to Trump on his election victory was that their countries would gain from cooperation and lose from confrontation. Trump's messaging might raise the specter of a US deal to allow China its sphere of influence in Asia on the condition it does not challenge it elsewhere. Trump wants no more than a modus vivendi with China on economic relations and to maintain his communication with Xi. After all, Biden had 3 meetings with Xi in the past 3 years without reducing geostrategic Sino-US rivalry. Trump is not the first US president to be reticent about globalization, to implement measures impacting international trade adversely, or to pursue an America First policy. Many of his predecessors have done the same. Biden continued with the Trumpian trade and tariff policy and prevented the WTO from working effectively by stalling the appointment of members to its dispute settlement appellate body. For the future, notwithstanding their different geographies and socio-economic chasm, the challenge for India and the US is to make their relationship non-reversible and transformative. The two countries seem ready to bolster the balance of power in Asia and willing to coordinate their foreign and security policies to the extent possible. Only, given Trump's mercurial temperament, especially his penchant for turning on allies and friends, the Indian government must remain agile.
Jayant Prasad is a retired diplomat and former Director General, the Institute of Defence Studies and Analyses.
This is Frontline on Air. Major stories on the go.